Now, I learned these tools all different kinds of ways, mostly by living my life. I didn't really learn too much of them in school. I learned most of them by living my life, paying attention, working with smart business people like you. Here's how I learned this one. I'm going to tell you a story that it still kind of blows me away. Actually, blows me away a lot, but it's true. I'm going to share it with you about managing. I want you guys to find your Steve Smiths. I live in North Carolina. We have a professional football team called the Carolina Panthers, although this year, semi-professional football team called the Carolina Panthers. And one year, those of you who are football fans will know this happened. One year, one of the players on the team was in a team meeting, got so angry that he attacked a teammate and beat him up and sent him to the hospital. Now, I like to ask my business audiences, can you imagine being at work and getting so angry that you want to beat somebody up? And the answer is, of course you can. Of course, perhaps several times a day. But if you actually did it, what would happen to you? Probably depends on who you beat up, frankly, but more than likely, you're in trouble, right? You're going to lose your job. You might go to jail even. It could be criminal charges. Who knows? Well, you know what they did? The player's name was Steve Smith, and at the time, Steve was a really good punt returner. Young man. He's like a first or second year on the team, and he's the one who attacked his teammate. Well, the team suspended Steve for one game. I'm going one measly game for putting a teammate, anybody else in the business world is in a lot more trouble than that. And I know my kid's going to come to me because I like to watch sports and I can teach them values through sports. And now I got to teach this value to my son, which I didn't want to teach. Son, the reason Steve only got a slap on the wrist is because he's a really good punt returner. And you know what in life? If you got special skills, sometimes the rules don't apply to you. I didn't want to give him that lesson. So I got angry. So I went to my computer and I Googled who owns the Carolina Panthers. Some name popped up, Jerry Richardson. Never heard of him before, but okay, he owns the team. And I sent off this angry letter to Jerry Richardson. Dear Mr. Richardson, I don't agree with how you handled the Steve Smith affair. As a psychologist, he clearly needs some anger management counseling. You put him back on the field too soon. You kind of quit on your team by putting him back on the field so soon. The next week they lost 34-0. And I said, and I just don't think you have the right values by putting this kid back on the field so quickly. And so I'm going to teach my kid never to root for your team again. Sincerely yours, Gary Bradt. I put it in the mail. I sent it off. Now, when you send a letter like that, you send a letter like that to a Don Graham or a president of whatever, you expect anything back? Maybe from Don, perhaps, but from most presidents, CEOs, of course not. It doesn't even reach their desk. And I didn't expect anything back, and I didn't get anything back. That was fine. I didn't think I would. Because you never do when you send something. I figured it'd end at some customer service rep desk, and that's fine with me. I got it off my chest. Several months go by. I told my friend Bob about the letter, but several months go by. I come home from the gym, and my wife hands me this fax. I said, what in the world is this? She said, well, it came in while you were at the gym. I look at it. Now, this is like 4 or 5 months later. And it's a fax copy of the letter I'd written to Jerry Richardson with a little handwritten note up at the top. It said, Dear Gary, received your letter. Steve Smith and I would like to come visit with you and your son. I will call at 10 a.m. to discuss. Signed, Jerry Richardson, owner, Carolina Panthers. That's good. I said, that's really good. My friend Bob, that I told about this letter how many months ago, is trying to punk me now. Because clearly, it's not Jerry Richardson. Bob, okay, so Peggy gave Bob a copy of the letter. I got it. That's fine. I can deal with this. So 10 o'clock, phone rings. Hello. Hello, Gary, Jerry Richardson. Bob, I know that's you. This is the Easter Bunny. Come on, man. I know that's you, Bob. It was Jerry Richardson. That little voice in the back of my head's going, Bob can't do that voice. So maybe this really is Jerry Richardson, but it can't be Jerry Richardson because this doesn't make any sense. Well, Mr. Richardson, what's the purpose of the call? Well, did you get my fax? Yes, sir, I sure did. Well, Steve Smith and I want to come visit with you and your boy. And I'm like, no, they're not coming to visit. We're 100 miles. We're not in the same town. I live in Greensboro, North Carolina. They're in Charlotte. That's 100 miles. They're not going to come visit with. I'm sorry, sir. What's the purpose again? I already told you. He starts getting irritated with me now. He's insisting they're going to come visit with me and my boy. I say, I'm the little voices, and that's crazy. Of course, my outside voice, yes, sir. Okay, that sounds fine, sure. And we set a date, and I go to my wife. I say, honey, they're not coming. All right? This is nuts. And she goes, my wife's very smart. She goes, well, maybe it's like a PR tour. Maybe they're like going through the whole state, after the season, and they're going to do this little PR tour and bring a bunch of photographers and reporters. And I said, yeah. Then I called my brother. Big mistake. I called my brother. I run the whole thing by him. And here's what my brother says. He goes, oh, Gary, they're coming. I said, really, you think? He goes, oh, yeah, I don't think. I know they're going to come. I said, why do you think they're going to come, Jeff? He goes, it's clear to me they're going to come beat the crap out of you, too. That made sense. Now, the day of the visit, it's snowing. And in North Carolina, I grew up in Fairfax, Virginia. It was like Northern Virginia and North Carolina. We don't do snow. So everything shuts down. Steve was going to go to school with my son. How cool was that? Bring a panther to lunch day kind of thing. But there is no school. They won't come. Okay, there's their out. Hello, guys, run away. Jerry Richardson and Steve Smith drove 2.5 hours through the snow to come visit with me and my boy. No reporters, no photographers, just the two of them. Not a quick meet and greet. I mean, we visited my home for a while, and then I lent Steve my car. He took my kid to McDonald's. Jerry and I went to another place. From a customer service standpoint, it was just incredible, amazing stuff. By the way, Steve Smith. I am a huge Steve Smith fan. As a football player, but more importantly, as a man. Because Jerry told me, he said, I didn't make Steve come. He said, I just showed him your letter and said, I'm going to go visit this guy. And Steve says, I want to come. That took guts. And I followed Steve ever since then. You know what he is? Steve Smith is a flawed human being who acknowledges his flaws and does the very best he can to overcome them. You know what I am? I'm a flawed human being. Steve is an inspiration to me to acknowledge my flaws and do the very best I can to overcome them. So I am a huge Steve Smith fan, first as a man, second as a football player. And incredible customer service story. I asked Mr. Richardson and said, Mr. Richardson, why did you, Steve, come all this way? Well, you're angry and unhappy, and we don't like angry, unhappy customers. And I said, yeah, but I couldn't have been the only one. Didn't you get other letters or other people that were upset with that situation? Oh, sure we did. I said, so why me and my boy? He goes, well, you were really angry, he says. So you can take the customer service lesson out of that, but here's the leadership lesson and the change leadership lesson. Talk about your diamonds in the rough. The next year, Steve emerged as a leader on our team. Not just a punt returner, but a great receiver, which he is to this day. He's still a leader on our team. He's a leader in Charlotte, North Carolina. He led our team to the Super Bowl, and it wasn't until that year went by that I realized, who did Jerry Richardson really invest in that day? Steve Smith. And who did Steve Smith invest in? Jerry Richardson. Because the next year, Steve's contract was up, and he came out in the papers and saying, I want to re-sign with the Carolina Panthers, and that's when it hit me. You know, those guys had 2.5 hours in the snow each way. It's about 4 to 5 hours in the car together that day. I can only imagine what they talked about. I can only imagine. I said, man, that's an incredible investment that they made in each other. I'm sure they had a million other things they could have used their time for that day. It's like you guys are here today. Why are you here today? Get back to your campuses. Get to work. Why are you here screwing around, having fun last night? Listen to this idiot. Get back to work. You're here because your leaders are saying, hey, we're going to make an investment. Because if you don't make an investment in people, you can't expect them to lead through change. So here's my question for you. Who are your Steve Smiths? Who are the people back on your campuses, back in your offices, that with some investment of time from you could blossom? I'll warn you right now, you got to get out of your comfort zone. It's not always going to be people you like the best. It's not always going to be your buddies, your chums. But your job as a leader is to go find those folks and invest some time in them.